Hey YouTubers, DIYDan here. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to change the oil in your Porsche 944 Turbo. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing we want to do is warm the engine oil. I'm going to let my car idle here for a few minutes before I drain it. After the engine oil is good and warm, go ahead and pop the hood. Once the hood is up, go ahead and loosen the oil fill cap all the way so the oil will drain quicker. Next, we want to raise the car. If you're using a jack and jack stands, there is a jack point just behind both front wheels. I recommend getting a Porsche jack pad that will aid in preventing any damage that may occur when raising the car. These jack pads can be found online for around $30 to $40. I recommend raising the car on the driver's side as it will put the drain bolt at its lowest point. Once the car is raised, we can start removing the belly pan. The belly pan is held on by a mixture of 10mm bolts, 10mm nuts, and Phillips head screws. When removing the belly pan, I always start at the back and work forward. First, I start by loosening the two 10mm nuts that are on either side of the car. Next, I loosen the 5 10mm bolts that hold the belly pan to the cross member. Now remove the 3 Phillips head screws that hold the belly pan to the bat wing. Once the 3 Phillips head screws are removed, you can pull down the bat wing to reveal the 3 remaining bolts that hold on the belly pan. There are 3 access holes on the bottom of the bat wing that allow for easy access to the belly pan bolts. I recommend loosening the 3 10mm bolts from these access holes. Once the belly pan is out of the way, we have easy access to the oil pan and its drain bolt. Make sure to position a drain pan underneath the oil pan to catch the old oil. Now use a 15mm socket to loosen the oil pan drain bolt. I'm going to let this oil drain for about 10 minutes to remove as much of the old oil as possible. While the oil is draining, now is a good time to clean the drain bolt and apply your new crush washer. Once the oil is done draining, clean the outside of the oil pan before reinstalling the drain bolt and torquing to 37 foot-pounds. Now that the drain bolt is installed, we are ready to remove the oil filter. This is a rather messy job, so make sure to position your drain pan underneath the oil filter before trying to remove. First I remove the coil wire to give me a little more room. Then I grab my channel locks to get my oil filter loose. Once the oil filter is loose, I loosen it about 90% of the way and let it sit there for a few minutes to drain as much of the old oil out as possible. The less oil that is left in the oil filter, the less messy the job will be. When removing the oil filter, it has to be removed from the top. Space is tight, but it does fit between the wiper motor and camshaft housing. Once the oil filter is removed, make sure to take a rag and clean up any residual oil that may have spilled. Before installing the oil filter, we need to lubricate the oil filter gasket with motor oil. Insert the new oil filter between the wiper motor and the camshaft housing to install. Porsche recommends the oil filter be tightened to 15 foot-pounds. We are now ready to add oil. I start off by adding enough oil until the dipstick reads full. Next, I pull the DME relay, which allows me to safely crank the car over without starting it. In doing this, I'm priming the oil filter with oil to prevent oil starvation on startup. However, when cranking the car over to build oil pressure, you want to do this in short intervals as not to damage the starter. I crank my car on and off in 6 to 7 second intervals until oil pressure is built. Now, reinstall the DME relay and start the car. Did you notice how quickly the car had oil pressure? This can be contributed to me priming the oil filter. While the car is running, make sure to thoroughly check around the oil filter and drain bolt to see if any leaks are present. As you can see, everything looks fine on my car and no leaks were found. I'm now ready to turn the car off and top off the engine with oil. It's important to always let the car sit a few minutes before checking the oil with a dipstick. Since I primed the oil filter with oil, my car took an additional 1/3 quart of oil to bring it to the full mark again. Since oil capacities can vary from model year to model year and also depend on what options are installed, it's always important to use the oil dipstick to determine how much additional oil is needed for your 944 turbo. Once we have verified a leak-free engine and have the oil at the correct level, we are now ready to install the belly pan. I first start off by installing the front of the pan by inserting it right above the batwing to rest on the lip. Once the front is safely resting, work yourself towards the back and rest the two hangers on their respective 10mm studs, which are located on either side of the car. I then loosely install the two 10mm nuts onto their studs. The reason I'm loosely installing all the bolts and nuts is in case I have to readjust the belly pan to get a bolt into its mounting location. I'm now loosely installing the three 10mm bolts that hold the front of the belly pan to the car. I found it easier if I set the bolt into the socket and then insert it through the access hole to be installed. You'll want to push up very hard in order to get the bolt started. Be sure to do this job by hand to prevent any accidental cross-threading that may occur when using a ratchet. Next, install the 5 remaining bolts that hold the belly pan to the cross member. Now that all the bolts are installed, I go back over all of them, ensuring that they are good and tight. We are almost done. The last thing we need to do is install the 3 remaining Phillips head screws that hold the batwing to the belly pan. Congratulations! You just successfully changed the oil in a 944 turbo and saved yourself a couple $100 in the process. If you thought this video was helpful, please hit the like button. As always, if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section and I'll do my best to answer them. Good luck!